I was facilitating a workshop on AI, and I was scrolling through the forum for one of the activities we did. And I stopped at a specific comment that I must have read 4 or 5 times before I moved on. A teacher had written something about AI tools. She wasn't really complaining, she was clear about that. She said that she found the possibilities genuinely fascinating. But then she used 2 words that I couldn't get out of my head: awe and despair. Not one or the other, both at the same time. I read that and I knew immediately what she meant. And so I wrote back. I gave her a practical suggestion: start small, pick one annoying task, ignore everything else for now. It was good advice, and she thanked me and the forum moved on. But I kept coming back to that comment because I had answered the question on the surface and left the harder one completely untouched. Have you ever given someone the right answer to the wrong question? Welcome for Pedagotech for English teachers. I'm Marcelo Ozana, EFL teacher, instructional coach, and someone who thinks about teaching probably more than is healthy for any one person. This is Pedagotech Season 1, Episode 6. Today I want to talk about AI in the classroom, but not in the way that you've probably heard it discussed before. Not about which tool to use, nor about prompt engineering, nor about whether AI will replace teachers. Though I do have a book about that called The Irreplaceable Teacher, available for Kindle and purchase paperback on Amazon.com. Link in the description for this episode. Anyway, I want to talk about why the same tool feels like liberation to some teachers and like one more impossible demand to others. And more specifically, what I actually do with AI in my own teaching and why I think the difference has nothing to do with technical skill. Because I think we've been asking the wrong question. And asking the wrong question, however enthusiastically, gets you nowhere useful. So let me go back to that workshop forum. The context was this. I was facilitating a professional development session on AI tools for teachers. The participants were experienced educators, people with years in the classroom, people who knew their craft, not beginners. Not people who needed convincing that good teaching matters. People who were genuinely trying to figure out where AI fit into work they already did well. And between sessions, I posted a discussion prompt asking them to reflect on their experiences with AI tools so far. And that's when I read her comment. She wrote that she felt fascinated by the possibilities, and she meant it. You could feel that she meant it. But she also wrote that the more she saw what AI could do, the more suffocated she felt. The sheer volume of features, functionalities, possibilities, every tool promising to save time, every tutorial revealing 17 more things she hadn't tried yet. And underneath all of it, this quiet, persistent feeling that she was somehow already behind. Awe and despair. A colleague jumped in with a response I thought was genuinely good. She compared using AI to working with a new intern. You don't ask an intern to help in general. You give them a specific task. The clearer the instruction, the better the result. It was a smart analogy, practical, actionable. And then I added my own response. Start with one small thing, something repetitive, low stakes. Ignore the other 900 features, just one thing at a time. She thanked us both, said it helped, and the conversation moved on. But here's what I didn't say, and what I didn't even fully see yet at the moment. My advice was right, but it was answering a productivity question, and what she was really asking, what was underneath the awe and despair, wasn't really about productivity at all. In the days that followed, I kept turning it over, and I started asking myself something I hadn't asked before. Why does AI work the way it does for me, when it clearly doesn't feel that way for teachers I deeply respect? I use AI every day, and I find it genuinely helpful. I'm not saying that to be smug about it. I'm saying it because the gap between my experiences and hers was real, and I needed to understand it. So I traced it back. And what I found surprised me, because it had nothing to do with the tools themselves. The wrong question, and I say this as someone who has asked it plenty of times, the wrong question is, what can AI do for me? It sounds like the right question. It sounds practical and open-minded, but it puts the tool at the center and you at the periphery. And when a tool responds to that question by offering you 200 options, you don't feel empowered. You feel exactly what that teacher felt: overwhelmed, behind, vaguely inadequate. The right question, the one that actually changes how you work, is different. It is, what do I need to solve right now, specifically? Not in general, not eventually, right now, this lesson, this group, this week. The shift sounds small, but in practice it's enormous, because it means you arrive at the tool with the problem already formed. And the tool becomes a resource you activate, not a frontier you explore. I think of it as intention before the tool. You don't open AI to see what it suggests. You open it because you already know what you need, and you're using it to get there faster. Let me show you what that looks like in my actual practice. 3 things I do regularly, not as recommendations, just as illustrations of what this principle looks like when it's working. The first is planning. At the start of the term, I take the index of the course book I'm using, just the index, the chapter titles and topics, and I ask AI to build the semester syllabus from it. Not to replace my judgment, to give me a map, something I can look at, adjust, and use as a reference point for the whole term. The AI doesn't decide the curriculum, I do. But it organizes what already exists in a way that saves me an hour of staring at a blank document. Then, week by week, I take the chapter content, the vocabulary, the themes, the grammar point, and I ask AI to build a task-based learning lesson plan around it. Something with real communicative tasks at the center, plenty of speaking, and the grammar emerging from the task rather than driving it. The exercises in the book become homework, consolidation, not the lesson itself. What I get back isn't perfect. I always have to adjust it, but it is a solid starting point in 15 minutes instead of 45. That's intention before the tool. I'm not asking AI what to do. I'm telling it what I need and letting it do the structural heavy lifting. The second application is feedback on writing. I work with students preparing for high-stakes English exams, the kind where written production is assessed against very specific criteria: coherence, cohesion, lexical range, grammatical control, task achievement. So, giving meaningful, personalized feedback on 30 essay takes time I genuinely don't have if I'm doing it the traditional way. So I built an AI assistant using a free tool, nothing complicated, and I trained it on the assessment criteria I use. I feed it the original task and the student's essay. It gives me a structured feedback: what worked, what needs improvement, specific examples from the student's own writing, suggestions for revision, and I review it, I adjust the tone where needed, and send it to the student. The students get detailed, personalized feedback that I couldn't have given consistently at that volume. And I spend 45 minutes on feedback that used to take 2 hours. Not because I'm doing less, but because I'm doing the part that only I can do. Knowing the student, reading the context, deciding what to emphasize. The third is assessment analysis. After a test, I organize students' responses into a simple spreadsheet, also using AI, question by question, right and wrong. And I ask AI to identify the patterns. Where did the whole group struggle? Which questions separated students who understood from those who didn't? What skills need reinforcement before the next assessment? The result is a report I can share with my department. Not just a grade sheet, but a pedagogical analysis. What the group knows, what they don't yet know, and what I need to prioritize next. Now, this is important. None of these 3 things required me to learn a new platform, complete a certification, or spend a weekend watching tutorials. They required one thing: arriving at the tool with a specific problem already in mind. That's what was different about my experience compared to the teacher in that forum. Not enthusiasm, not technical fluency, sequence. She was opening the tool and asking what it could do. I was opening the tool and telling it what I needed to do. I already know what I needed. The tool was the same, the experience was completely different. And here's the part that stayed with me longest after the workshop. Her overwhelm wasn't a personal failing. It was a rational response to a real structural problem. Because developing that kind of intentionality, knowing what you need before you open the tool, requires something that many teachers simply don't have enough of: time to think. Not time to plan lessons, not time to grade. It's time to sit with your own practice and ask, what is actually hard about my work right now? What could genuinely help? Teachers who have that time can develop intentionality with AI. Teachers who don't, who are running from one class to the next, managing impossible workloads, in some cases working 2 jobs, those teachers open AI hoping it will tell them what to do. And when it offers them 200 options instead of one answer, the despair makes complete sense. The awe and despair aren't a technology problem. They're a conditions problem, wearing a technology costume. I'm not going to pretend this is simple. telling a teacher who's already stretched thin to slow down and clarify their intentions before opening an AI tool. I hear how that sounds. Sounds like one more thing, one more step in a process that already has too many steps. But here's what I've come to believe, and it's the thing I wish I had said in that forum instead of just the practical advice. Teachers who are struggling with AI aren't struggling because they lack skill. They're struggling because the system they work in has never given them enough space to develop clarity about their own practice. And AI, arriving with all its noise and promise, just makes that absence more visible. The tool isn't the problem. The space is the problem. And maybe the most honest thing any of us can do as teachers, as trainers, as people who care about this profession is to stop treating overwhelm as a personal failing and start treating it as information. Information about what's missing, about what would actually need to change for any of this to work the way it's supposed to. So here's the question I will leave you with. It's not a to-do list, it's just something to sit with. If you had 20 minutes this week with no other obligation, no lesson plan, no essay to grade, no meeting to prepare for, and you just used that time to ask yourself one question about your own teaching. What is actually hardest about my work right now? What would the answer be? Because I think that answer, whatever it is exactly where AI could genuinely help you. Not the tool with the most features, not the platform with the best reviews, just a clear answer to a specific question and a tool pointed at it. That's the whole thing, really. Thanks for listening, and if this resonated, I'd love to know what it brings up for you, what it makes you want to revisit in your own planning. Because I think the real work starts when this episode ends and you're standing in front of your group on a Tuesday morning. If you want to go deeper on this, I've written about it over on the Pedagotech for English Teachers Substack, where I look at the research behind why AI overwhelm is a structural problem, not a personal one. And there's also a paid Portuguese piece with the full framework spelled out in practical detail. Links are in the show notes. Subscribe to pedagotecenglish.substack.com for more. And if this episode was useful, share it with one teacher who you think needs to hear it. See you next time.